this is what we all feel. Let's just not deny it. Something pulls and it tears in the deepest place. This is what we all know. Why must we still fight it? It's time to open our eyes and acknowledge the writing on the wall.
Hey guys, today we have a fun video. We're traveling to Augusta, Illinois to check out the composting operation they got going at Ag Management. So here we go. All right guys, here we are at Ag Management. I'm going to go in and talk to Clint, and he's going to show you guys his setup here. All right, hey Clint.
Hey.
So Clint, tell us who you are and what this system is.
I am Clint with Biovante, and these are our biological extract compost tea machines. We designed these 4 years ago, trying to get better consistency out of our extract program that we've been running, and I'll show you a little bit how they work.
Perfect.
So this is our compost extract machine. What we have designed is this basket so we can do quick turns. We hook water up to it, and it jets out into our compost, or we fill our compost in here probably 3/4 of the way full. We also have air coming up through the bottom that helps extract the microbes into the water. So we lift our basket up, set it into the center here, and we have air coming out the bottom of this cone. And it blasts up and helps push the microbes out of the basket into the water solution. We also hook this hose up right here to the top of the basket. As we're filling, part of the extraction process is using the water to jet out the compost into the basket, into the water as we're filling it.
Okay, so this hose right here hooks to that connection right there.
Yep. And then we have these just simple cylinders with holes in them.
Okay.
So we can typically turn one of these in about an hour from start to finish. When we're done, we'll pull the basket out, dump it. We save all our spent compost. This will be like clean aggregate material. There'll be no fines at all left in this. And then once that's done, we just pump it out into our filter tote and filter our extract before it goes to the grower or to our farm.
Okay. So you have you fill it full of compost, you put it in there, and then do you fill it full of water first and then do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you fill it full of water, and then that extraction process that you explained happens. Once you've brewed that for 40 minutes,
Yep.
Then it comes over here, filters into this, or you filter it so it's ready to go to the farmer, and then it goes in that cylinder.
Then we'll actually pump it outside into a tender
Okay.
and deliver it.
Got ya. Perfect. So Clint, once we have the product that you're finished with here, what do you do with the leftover compost that's in the cage, and then the slurry that's in the bottom of that once you've pumped it into there?
So we've got an outside bunker where we take all our spent material and we pile it. And then the slurry gets rinsed out and pumped out with a trash pump back to our spent pile, and we basically re-inoculate our compost. And we don't use that until the following year, but we basically have come up with a regenerative building to where that compost regenerates itself with the slurry that's pumped back on the spent material that we extracted.
Okay, so this is the spent pile. This is our feedstock we're going to regenerate. So after we get done making, with the fresh, it goes back in here, and that slurry is pumped into here. So basically, we're just back to square one with the compost, and then we have the option. It's cold in the winter now, but like as the spring comes, and we can slightly inoculate this pile, and so we can start to bring the numbers back up and get the activity ramping back up. So then we're back to kind of where we started, and then we can take this and bring it in and then do the real treatment process where we really ramp up the numbers. And then we'll mix some fresh in here too, but we've kind of been able to make it a self-regenerating system that way.
The fibrous material, but when we get re-inoculate it, it basically turns back into rich compost again.
So do you guys have any worms going through that?
Oh, it's full of worms.
Right
Well,
now,
with it cold, they're probably deep in the pile.
we don't put them there. There's one right there, but it's just it'll just get filled with worms.
Okay, so Luke, what is the process of you guys either, getting your compost and the stuff that you guys use?
So we don't actually produce the compost ourselves. We source it from some locally, and then, like we explained earlier, from different companies across the U.S. that do large scale. So we've tested a bunch of different ones, and we basically end up with a blend of 3 to 4 that gives us the balance of the species that we like. So then in the spring, when we're all set up here, we have all this set up out here, and then this is where we mix to pre-treat. So it's a kind of a recipe of this many buckets of this many buckets of that, and that gives us our blend when we start with fresh. And that's kind of how we build the feedstock. So then that blend is used, and then that blend is what goes back into the bunker, which is then our feedstock to keep regenerating. So we start with some fresh to pile on top, and then regenerate that pile. So it's a blend of fresh in the regenerated compost. And it all comes up and is blended through here. But just to kind of show you the power of the biostimulant in that is, this is all just gravel here. And just a little bit of compost and a little bit of the biostimulant falls out of here. And this is all white clover growing in the gravel. And this is all volunteer. This was just seeds that were blown in from the wind, and this is our crop of clover just growing straight in gravel right here.
Because the compost.
Because right here is where a little bit of the compost, a little bit of the biostimulant drops out of here every time. Just is kind of just you miss the bucket a little bit or something like that. We found that interesting. We saw that this summer. Just all of a sudden we have a really healthy clover crop growing in our gravel right there.
So basically you source multiple different compost from several areas, and then you take the spent stuff that you guys have in the back that we took a video of earlier and are able to re-inoculate the spent compost with some of the other stuff. And it's just
we use fresh and then what's in the back to kind of keep that feedstock going. And then in the back, then we will also inoculate with food source in the back.
Okay.
At a lot lower rate than when we do the process inside, but like I said, we think of it as a feedstock. It's like those are the organisms inside that medium, just like you think of cattle on a pasture.
Okay. This is the new building that they're building for their operation. Luke, you want to tell me a little bit about this place?
Yeah, so this right here, this part of the facility is going to mainly be dedicated to the in-season liquid fertilizers and that. So it's not all done, but at the back here, so at the back of this building is dry fertilizer bays, bringing raw materials, and then there'll be a station to make that raw material into liquid fertilizers, and then we pump into here. So we got 4,000 to 5,000 gallons, 5,000 gallons, and there's a couple 2,000 back here and a 10,000, and then each one. Some will be tied together, but it'll be set up on an automated system for pump out, where basically different channels. So 2 tanks will say be liquid AMS, 2 tanks will be liquid potash, 1 tank may be liquid boron, this tank will probably be like a liquid humic. And then you'll have a load out station here where we can call through, it'll be automated, so we can call so many pounds of each product. So we want to make a blend that's, say per acre, 8 gallons of UAN, 10 gallons of liquid ammonium sulfate, and 7 gallons of potash, liquid potash. And that's a pretty common corn blend we run. So it's balanced between nitrogen, sulfur, and potassium. And then we can just call the system to basically make that blend, put it in the tender, and then we have a pre-blend. It's pre-blended right on the tender to go out to the field here. This will all mostly be dedicated to the in-season fine-tuned balanced fertilizer mixes.
Okay, so Luke, in your opinion, what is the benefit or the pros and cons on a compost extract versus the compost tea?
So one of the main reason we do compost extract in this process and using it in fertile soil applied is a logistical thing. Before we mix the biostimulants, we can get a good 5 to 6 days, and this product is still good. We look at it, and then we add the biostimulants. We kind of look at it as we're kind of making a tea in the planter as we go through the field, because once we add the biostimulants in, the activity once again begins to ramp up. So it gives us some time to have it on the shelf, and then we kind of make a tea as we go through the field once we add the biostimulants. As far as making a tea, which we can make a tea in these machines too, and just kind of from what we've learned from other people who've been in this kind of arena for a while, is that a tea is completely activated, and so the organisms are at full activity level, and they're consuming the food and repopulating actively as we go. So those are better for foliar applications, whereas the extract we can use soil applied, because we're activating as we go and then it's going right into the soil. Whereas we're not trying to use beneficial biology on the leaf surface to say ward off pathogenic fungi or to foliar feed nutrients as they go through their life cycle. But that's, so extracts in the ground, teas foliar is kind of where we're at. So my name is Luke Holst. I'm one of the owners down here at Bioag Management. So my family's farmed for a few generations. I've always been helped on the farm. Then when I went to college, ended up working in grad school in GIS geography, and then started working in precision ag. And Clint and Clayton were always known them the whole, since we were kids, and would always work with them on using precision ag fertility management in that. And we kind of started to see, there was just doing traditional soil testing, just traditional VRT, that there was areas in the fields where we never would call for fertilizer, just using kind of standard recommendations. So that kind of made us scratch our heads like, well, what's going on here? Because you listen to the conventional knowledge is like, well, you shouldn't be able to do that. You can't grow a crop without big amounts of fertilizer. And then Clint started to trial some of the biological products, just jug-based stuff, about 5 or 6 years ago. And then we saw good things out of that. And then just through kind of researching that, we figured out about doing the compost teas and extracts. And then we started with some other machines, and then we've slowly built into building our own machines, and just continue to see good things. We've been able to just kind of change our whole strategy of how we go about fertility and managing a crop, and it's made us, helped insulate us from some of these swings in prices and things like that. So we just kind of put together a whole system, we call it the hybrid system. It's kind of pulling things from regenerative ag and organic ag and conventional ag, and kind of using what we think will scale up and work. And so like right now, our whole kind of system is focused on a conservation tillage and strip till practices, and then using biologicals mainly in the spring and furrow. We're going to trial some more foliar application stuff this year, and then using in-season fertility has been our next big thing. Is that after we've figured out where we're lacking with this, where we could bring, we could bring up nutrient levels and make denser, more nutrient dense crops, but we started out with a really healthy base, but then we thought we were missing something towards the end. So then we started to focus on, well, if we've got this real good base start by using the biologicals, now let's use fertilizers selectively in season and try to target when they need them and in the ratio that the plant would need. So we look at our fertility program as not so much of just putting fertilizer out there to say, chase a soil test and build a soil test, or I want to find a soil test of this magic number, but more on feeding the crop. And that's allowed us to cut back on a lot of inputs, and then we just use soil testing and that to monitor and make sure that things aren't really changing in the soil, and then it's really helped the bottom line all in all. But that's kind of how we got started and where we end up here today.
So Clint, what products are you guys selling locally here to consumers?
So our main kind of flagship product would be the live biological that we make here, along with the biostimulants that go into that mix to make the actual planter mix goes in the planter. And then through our relationship with Biovante, we can sell some jug-based biologicals that we've kind of tested that we feel are consistent. There's some planter seed box treatments that go along with that, and then micronutrients, starter fertilizers, we can all get sourced through them. Humic acid, we also retail quite a bit of humic acid. And then on the fertility side, we have built other machines and we solubilize potash, muriatic potash, AMS, soluble boron, soluble urea, so we can make up kind of on demand depending on leaf tests and what we want to use, liquid fertilizers, where we bring in the dry raw materials, turn them into a liquid solution that's so many % versus off of what our label is, and then we retail that for in-season side dress applications and fertigation. It's 2x2. There's a lot of different applications we could do there.
Perfect. So Luke, what compost have you guys used in the past, and what have you found works for you, and what are you guys currently using now?
So in the past, we've used some different composts. I mean, some cattle manure base and some worm casting base. We found some inconsistencies with that. We had trouble making a consistent product every time. That's kind of the goal of our kind of system, is we want a consistent product every time we run the machine. So what we did was we kind of went back to the drawing table and just started using laboratory testing and pulling different sources of compost and just getting small bags, and then testing those to see what their ratios of fungal and bacteria and protozoa are, and then ended up settling on a blend. We're actually blending a few different types, and one of them comes here locally, and then a couple are one is, I believe, from Colorado, one is from the Pacific Northwest. So then we kind of blend those together to make a feedstock. We think of it as a feedstock more than just a compost, as that's where all organisms are basically living. And then once we have that, and that is balanced to where we want it for row crop, then we use biostimulants to essentially treat or pre-feed and grow those species at will whenever we want to. So it's just a basic stable feedstock until we decide that now we want to make product, so we're going to ramp that activity up. And then to control that process, we use some air. So once we mix all this compost and then we treat it with the biostimulant, we blend all this together, and that will start the population and the exponential growth of the organisms really quick. So within 36 hours of doing that process, our compost vats will be up to 140 degrees because that activity is just running rampant. So then at that point we have to control it. So then we use an air manifold system where we can cool that and slow that process down. And what we found is that once we run that process up and then we cool it down and then maybe let it run up one more time and cool it down, then we can stop the process. Or we just use the temperature of it to know whether or not it's stabilized, essentially. Where then it will hold at say a constant temperature, and then their feedstock is ready. And we've brought the populations, we've brought organism numbers up by 400, 500% a lot of times. And then that is what we use to extract. And that is what has allowed us to make a consistent product every time. Every step of the way, it's the same process over and over. And then us being able to ramp that activity up on our own terms, I guess, is one of the ways we can make it really consistent.
Well, guys, that concluded my tour of Bio Ag Management there in Augusta, Illinois. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about their operation that you want to see in a future video, let me know. Or if you want to contact them directly about their products, check out their website. I have a link. I'm going to have a link to that in the video description. So leave your questions in the comments below. Like and subscribe to our channel, and I hope you have a great day.